so these problems here, they ask us to find a sine function that has an amplitude of 4, a period of 2 pi, a phase shift of -2, and no vertical shift. Okay, so in this case, they give us the information. We have to go backwards and write the equation. Okay, the first one's not too bad. The second one's more difficult. So the first one, it tells us the sine function, so we'll have y equals, the amplitude is 4, so that tells me I will have a 4 right there in front of my sine. Okay, the period is 2 pi, so what number will be multiplied by my variable right here, or any? A 1 or nothing at all, right? So I'm going to go ahead, so Katie and Luke here about this, I'm going to use a theta. Your book uses a theta a lot of times instead of an x. It's just a variable. It's the same as the x's we've done in the other problems. Hopefully Katie and Luke will watch this and hear that. And then we have a phase shift of -2, or that means left 2 whenever you see that -2 there. So to have a phase shift of -2, we would put a +2 here. That would move it to the left 2. We don't have to do anything special there because we don't have a period change, so it's just normal. There is no vertical shift. We would have a midline at y equals 0, but no vertical shift, so we do not add anything over here. We don't move it up and down. Okay, so this would be our equation. Okay, questions there? That one was not too bad. The next one is going to be more difficult because we have a period change and a phase shift, and that's where those can get a little bit difficult. Okay, so we've got y equals, I have an amplitude of 1/2, so that means I'll have 1/2 out front and then cosine. And I'm going to leave the inside of the parentheses alone for a minute because that's the hardest part to do. I have a vertical shift of 3, so I'm going to put a +3 over here on the end. Okay, so I know since I have a period change and a vertical shift here, I'm going to have some number times theta plus some other number here. Okay, so I see that the period is pi. And to find the period, I would do 2 pi divided by a number. Alright? 2 pi divided by a number. So to get pi here, it's going to be 2. So that means that number right there needs to be 2. Okay? My phase shift is 1, which makes me think I should put, really, I'm going to use a, well, let me make, here. I'm going to have to mark this out and make it a minus because it's a positive phase shift. That means to the right. So we'll make that negative. It looks like I should just put -1. But if I put -1 here, then my phase shift would actually be 1/2. It'd be 1/2. What number should I put here? 2. Okay? Because now, if I'm looking for the phase shift, I would do 2 divided by 2, which gives me the 1 that I'm looking for. Okay, this is a 2. Let me rewrite that since I messed it up. It's 1/2 cosine of 2 theta minus 2 plus 3. Okay. All right. Let's do 1 from your from what I'm going to add to your homework. So I'm going to add. I'll go ahead and tell you what I'm going to add. I'm going to add, oh, did I not write it down? Oh, yeah, there it is. I'm going to add page 384, 28 through 33 to what you have there. So let's look at one of the more difficult ones there. We'll go ahead and do it together. Let's do 29. It's pretty, well, 29 has an odd, is an odd. Let's do 30. I'll do 30 since this answer is not in the back of the book. 30 tells you you have an amplitude of 3/4. You have a period of pi over 5. You have a phase shift of pi, and you have a vertical shift of 1/4. And for 28 through 30, we're doing a sine function, so we're going to have y equals, amplitude is 3/4. Okay. And we'll have sine of something here. Let's not mess with it right now. We have a vertical shift of 1/4, so we're going to have plus 1/4 over here on the end. Okay. Now, the last problem that we did was a little bit easier to do because we knew pretty easily that if we wanted to get a period of pi, that we needed to divide by 2, right? So that was pretty easy to find. And if we needed a phase shift of 1, it was going to be 2 divided by 2, so it was 1, so that was a little easier to do. I'm going to show you another method that you can use for when you have a more difficult number. You could still do this one in your head, but I'm going to show you another method. I know I'm going to have some number here. I'm going to call it A times theta plus B. I know I've got numbers there, right? I'm going to use an A and a B. Okay? So, how do I find the period is what I asked myself. To find the period, I would take 2 pi and I would divide it by whatever that A is, right? And when I do that, it should give me pi over 5. Now, you might be able to look at this and tell, can anybody look at it and tell what number A needs to be? It needs to be 10 because 2 over 10 would reduce to 1 over 5 and give us pi over 5. So if you can do it in your head, that's great, and do that. But let's say that you're stuck and you don't know what to do. To solve that, you could cross multiply. So that would give you A times pi equals 10 pi. And then if you're looking for that A, you would divide by pi, and divide by pi cancels on both sides. So A is 10. Okay, so that means we've got y equals 3/4 sine of 10 theta plus b plus 1/4. Okay, questions on that? Yes, or an x. You can use whichever variable you would like. You can use a theta if you want, or you can use an x, but there needs to be some variable there. Okay? Alright, so if you aren't sure how to fit, if it just doesn't jump out at you what number to divide by that you need there, then set up a little equation for that. Okay? We're going to do the same thing for b. I need the phase shift to be pi. Alright? So for this b, if I take b and divide it by a, that gives me my phase shift. Right? Actually, I shouldn't be using a because we found a. What is a? It's 10. So I would take b and I would divide it by 10 because we've already found that, right? Always do your period before you worry about your phase shift because you can't do your phase shift unless you know what that number is in front of the x or the theta. So b divided by 10 would give me pi. Now that's kind of weird, right? Like, I don't know what number I divide by 10 that would give me pi. Not so easily. But I can solve this. Put it over 1, cross multiply. So I get 10 pi equals b times 1, which is just b, right? So the number that goes there for b is 10 pi. So my final equation I get here is y equals 3/4 sine of 10 theta, or x, whichever one you want to use, plus 10 pi plus 1/4. And you can always check these pretty easily, assuming that you've kind of got down how to find the period, amplitude, and all of those things. We could do 2 pi divided by 10. That gives us a period of pi over 5. We could do 10 pi divided by 10. That gives us our phase shift of pi. I did mess up one thing on this. This 5 right here? Because the period is pi over 5. I think we got that right. Yeah. The period is pi over 5. So to find the period, we do 2 pi over a, and that should equal our period, which is pi over 5. Yes, correct. Good. Okay. All right. So